From the Clark Ford Studio in Oxford, Mississippi, MBW Digital proudly presents the Oxford Exxon Podcast.
I'd say thanks for tuning in, but why am I going to give you a round of applause for something you're supposed to do, to be frank?
And now, here are your hosts, Chase Parham.
And broadcast school has really paid off.
And Neal McCready.
I deserve to be on TV.
Welcome to this Tuesday morning edition of the Oxford Exxon Podcast. Chase Parham, Neal McCready, Clark Ford Studio this morning. Matt Moscona, Baton Rouge radio personality, joining us here in about 15, 20 minutes, something like that. So we'll talk to you for a while and then bring him on. He's always good for some LSU takes, probably some alcohol takes, and more for Matt here in a bit. Ole Miss and LSU, 8:15 Saturday night from Baton Rouge. Also found out that it is not at 11 o'clock. It was at the other option we gave you, ULM, next weekend for the home game, 3 p.m. for that one. All you guys are excited. I was quite glum when I found out, but nonetheless, we'll give you one here.
I kind of expected 3 o'clock the more I looked at it, because there were some...
But there doesn't have to be a 3 o'clock.
Here's the thing. The networks want to put an attractive game at 11 a.m. They do. And a lot of times they'll take the lowest game, and that week, Ole Miss ULM is the lowest game. There are a lot of good games. You kind of bury it behind the CBS game, and it kind of made sense. The SEC Network has 11 a.m., 3 p.m., 6:30 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of made sense. The more I looked at it, the more I went, this has 3 o'clock written all over it. And also, and I know this is a minority, there are some people that think there's a conspiracy about this. I actually think they don't want to load up one team with a bunch of 11 a.m.s.
Right.
And so Ole Miss had already had one. Ole Miss Arkansas in Little Rock has 11 a.m. written all over it. Now, it doesn't mean it will be, but if you look at it on the schedule, like I'm pulling that up real quick if you don't mind. October the 13th, it's Alabama, Missouri, Ole Miss Arkansas, Auburn, Tennessee, Florida, Vandy, Georgia, LSU, South Carolina, Texas A&M. That weekend has that Ole Miss Arkansas game in Little Rock just screams 11 a.m. in my opinion.
No, I think it does too. Yeah.
And so they knew Ole Miss was going to get another 11 a.m. or thought there was a chance down the road. I think Auburn's at night. I don't know about the South Carolina game, and then you get way down the schedule. Who knows? But I think there was a concerted effort to not do that. Okay. Alabama got back-to-back 11 a.m. games.
They did. Both at home.
Yeah. Well, no, one's at home today.
Oh, that's right. It's this weekend, next week.
Yeah.
They were at 2:30 against A&M. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, they play Louisiana Lafayette at home at 11 a.m. this week, and then they go to where do they go?
Is it Arkansas?
Yep.
Yeah, at Arkansas next week.
You know what? Cecil Hart said this on Twitter, and I think he's right. Alabama might start paying the price for their games are boring. They kill people, and the games are over in the late first quarter, early second quarter, and people are flipping off. Alabama might start paying the price for that sum and play a lot of these 11 a.m. games.
Let me think about that for a second. As we, I did see that on Twitter, but I didn't necessarily give it any thought.
He said it was just his theory, and when I first looked at it, I was like, and then I started thinking about it. I was like, well, if the goal is to keep eyeballs on the screen, and that is the goal,
mm-hmm.
You've got to – there's not tons of competitive games.
No.
And so if what keeps people locked in is competitive games, fourth quarters. Alabama doesn't play fourth quarters. Hell, they don't play second halves.
Yeah. Continue that in 1 second. First, the podcast brought to you every single day by the Oxford Exxon, Highway 6 West in Oxford. Call ahead. Get the ribs wet or dry. Get Speed Pass Plus app, because that's going to save you money at the pump. It's not going to be really convenient. Never have to go inside. Pay right off your mobile device. Don't have to worry about putting a credit card in and all the dangers that come with that. Also, 49-cent bottomless refills. Go buy the Stadium Cup inside. Refill it for 49 cents every single time with your favorite fountain drink there with the Oxford Exxon. Again, coming to you from the Clark Ford Studio.
We are Clark Ford's in Amory, Mississippi, 662-257-1900 is the number. Call the number. Ask for Corey. Tell Corey what new Ford you're looking for. Send him. He'll send you a quote within 15 minutes. Then it's up to you. You get that quote. You can shop it around, or you can let Corey and the people at Clark Ford do for you what they've done for so many others and let's take the hassle out of the everyday car buying experience. You get a great Ford product, great service after the sale, all of those things. Corey wants to be your car guy, wants to be your truck guy. He'll prove it to you. Give him a chance. 662-257-1900. At the end of your deal, tell Corey that you heard about Clark Ford on our podcast. You can mention any of our family of podcasts. You'll save an additional $500 at Clark Ford in Amory.
I don't know the answer to this. Does Alabama, though, get a disproportionate number of viewers at the beginning of games because they're Alabama? So are you drawing from a much larger sample size at the beginning,
Sure.
even though it does tell off so much more?
Well, technically, every game they play is a national playoff game of sorts. If someone were to knock Alabama off, it's the biggest story of the sports weekend.
See, I've had a lot of people tell me they actually watch Alabama more and longer because of the methodical nature of how they play now.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. No, the casual fan, though, is going to turn off the game. It's 56-3. I mean, I understand that.
I think I am. I noticed this. I'm the casual football fan. I'm not a guy that is locked into analytics, and I'm not going to sit and study a bunch of film and stuff like that of other games. I'm not viewing from sun up to sundown. I'm watching other things. When Alabama gets up 3 scores on somebody, I'm off. Off to the next game. Off to something different. Off. I don't find that interesting. I don't think. It's one of the problems of college football is there's not a ton of parity. We know who the 4 or 5 teams who have a chance to win the national title are. I mean, there's no secret here. It's Alabama, it's Georgia,
You
it's
watched
Ohio State.
Not to cut you off. You watched a decent amount of Auburn, Arkansas, didn't you?
Casually.
Didn't you say you kind of watched that?
It was on where I was, obviously. I was in Fayetteville, so it was on. I mean, it was a boring football game.
I don't know the guy. You do. What's Wally Hall like? Is it a crazy homer? Or is Wally kind of okay at times?
I mean, I like Wally the person a lot.
Yeah.
Wally the sports writer can get a little weird.
Wrote after the game, just saw this. Somebody sent it to me on Twitter last night, and I put up the story to see if it was actually right or if it was clickbait, and it was kind of right. Wrote that they lost 34-3, but Arkansas was better than Auburn on Saturday night.
Wait, what?
Were it not for special teams, they were a better football team than Auburn. They were as good defensively and better offensively than Auburn.
I'm speechless.
You speechless?
I watched enough of that. No.
That's what he said.
They played hard. Offensively, you can tell that some of what Morris is installing is starting to click. They don't have the players for it, Chase.
Some, mostly Auburn fans, will say the Tigers were hungover from the 22-21 loss to LSU the previous week.
Well, they absolutely were.
The truth was Arkansas was as good as Auburn. The defense played well enough to win, and the offense was better.
No.
That's what it says.
Auburn was absolutely hungover, a little lethargic.
Still win by 4.5 touchdowns.
Yeah.
They covered the line. I'm well aware.
Arkansas's defense played hard. Played hard.
Credit to Chad Morris. Okay.
I did not see a lot of loafing. Played hard. Offensively, like I just said, you can tell some things are starting to click a little. You can also tell they don't have the players to do some of what they're trying to do. Mm-hmm. To his credit, he's installing his system so that he can recruit to it. And this is becoming a sacrificial season. Now, they weren't going to be any good anyway.
Yeah, it was always going to be some level of sacrificial
So you might as well sacrifice the season. But no, better than Auburn? No. I'm sorry. No, it's ridiculous.
Okay.
I don't do you think people who read that, I'll be honest, we ask this question a lot. Like we're doing picks this week. You and I were just talking about picks. I'm a little torn right now. The pick that I have in the system right now is LSU by 11.
Okay.
It's the pick I have in the system.
Okay.
It's the one pick each week that I try to take really seriously and get it close to right because I know we're going to get criticized no matter what we do. I don't know that people, if you're a person who lives in Fort Smith or Little Rock or whatever, do you read that and go, hell yeah, boy, we're getting close? Or do you read that and go, are you insane?
Depends on the age of the person for the most part.
60 plus, they go, hell yes.
There is a segment.
We're getting better.
I mean, older people are, by definition, more Pollyanna usually. I think that's fair. I don't think that's criticizing anybody.
I just don't know how you can look at a game.
By definition, younger people are more cynical and more whatever.
It's 34-3.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to write a column that go, there were some positives tonight, okay. I've never been a fan of that column because I don't think at this level there's such a thing as moral victories. If Ole Miss goes to Baton Rouge and loses by 4 on Saturday, there will be people who write moral victory stories. If you want to get into moral victories, go for it. I think that's a silly deal. Louisiana Tech did not leave Baton Rouge on Saturday going, well, you know what, that's kind of in the win column. Didn't win, but it kind of is. No, you lost. Army said that.
Did they?
The guy at Army goes, there's no moral victories. Are there things we can build on? Sure.
Lost the game.
Lost the game. No moral victories.
Done a really good job there because that was a bad football team a few years ago, and they've become incredibly competitive.
Oh, they've done an outstanding job.
Yeah. One of the best coaching jobs in the country.
Just outstanding.
Years.
Navy, too.
Yeah, but they've been consistently good.
Yes.
Army's the one that's kind of taken that
done a great
push.
job. I can't believe I'm saying this. It's at the end of the season. I will watch Army-Navy this year, and not for the pageantry. It might actually be a good football game.
Yeah, as opposed to usually we just kind of turn it on to turn it on.
Usually we turn it on and say, oh, look at all the pageantry. Oh, and it's snowing. Isn't that pretty?
Yeah.
It's a good game this year. I wouldn't want to schedule those two teams right now. If I'm an AD and someone calls and goes, hey, you want to play Army? Nope.
I'm good.
Nope. We're going to call Central Illinois State.
What's the problem? Boise had for years is nobody really wanted to play them. It was like, I guess might still have it, frankly. But
when Boise would say, we can't get anybody to play us. True.
Yeah.
That's not.
You definitely don't want to waste a non-conference going to Idaho. So
No.
Just thought. I don't know. Yeah. All right. We're gonna go to Matt in a couple minutes. Before we do that, I will tell you the podcast is brought to you in part by Oxford Wine and Spirits, located next to Lost Pizza on College Hill Road. Already 5% below industry standards on prices. They'll help you even more. Spend $150 when you do that, or $150 or more, I guess. Take 5% off wine, 10% off liquor when you mention the podcast there at Oxford Wine and Spirits, and their regularly good selection. Got some new bourbons in recently as well. So that's Oxford Wine and Spirits next to Lost Pizza on College Hill Road.
Podcast also brought to you by Megan Phillips with LAH Real Estate. She's the person to call for all your real estate needs in the Birmingham area. With almost a decade of experience, Megan's knowledge and expertise can help you buy or sell your home today. So please visit her website, meganmphillips.com. That's MEAGANM Phillips.com. Or call Megan at 205-602-7929. Again, 205-602-7929. The podcast is also brought to you by 7 South Tailgating, Ole Miss, and the Harvard of the Bayou, Yale on the Ouachita, all of the one of the most prestigious academic institutions on this globe, in this galaxy, the University of Louisiana. At Monroe, they take the Warhawks, bring all of their textbooks and all of their knowledge to Oxford. They'll be in the Grove on Saturday morning. You can too next Saturday. And you want to do it with 7 South Tailgating. They're celebrating 10 years of business this season. Try them once. You'll never tailgate without them again. They'll set up your own personal gear, or you can rent everything from them. No one matches their customer service, their attention to detail. It's 7southtailgating.com. And we're brought to you by Oxford University Bank, OUB, locally owned and operated. Right here in Oxford, when you deposit money at OUB, that money and the vast majority of the bank's profits go right back into the Oxford community. OUB is offering 1-year CDs at 1.75% APY, 3-year triple option CDs paying 2.01% APY. With the 3-year term, customers can deposit once during the term, withdraw once during the term, and or bump the rate if OUB's 3-year rate rises. To learn more about OUB, check out Live Oxford, bankoxford.com, or call 662-234-6668. OUB is FDIC insured.
Now Matt Moscona on the Billy's Pecans hotline. Matt, good morning. Always a pleasure to talk to you. We're going to get to LSU in a second, but I do have to ask this. Is there a chance that the Saints are actually good? Are we going to be destined for like one of these 7-9 to 9-7 just ridiculous years where we've had a lot of them in the years past where you get a little bit of hope, but they bash you as soon as you try to do that?
So I will reserve judgment I get how bad the defense has been. I get they got a problem opposite Lattimore, and they need to figure out somebody who can cover somebody. But I will reserve complete and total judgment on this team in season until I see how much different they are materially when Mark Ingram comes back, because I believe their biggest issue right now is if they wanted to slow a game down and control tempo, they're unable because they don't have that back that can go grind out, an 11-play drive.
Okay.
So, for example, you're playing Tampa in the opener and they're scoring at will. It would have been nice to be able to just grind out a drive and keep that offense on ice, on the other sideline for about 15 minutes of real, actual, clock time. And they just don't have that ability right now. So if they can somehow get through this stretch without Mark Ingram at 3-1, then I think they can still win 10, 11 games and be a playoff team.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. I'm a little jaded for a couple reasons. I went into the season going, I'm not going to even care about the regular season. I'm still hurt, by the way. Last year ended. I just can't get in it. And then my brother is a diehard Rams fan, and I watch them and I go, we're nowhere close. Now I get they're the best team in football right now, but still, when I watch it, I go, yeah, I don't think we got that going on.
I still got to see Jared Goff do something in the postseason.
Okay.
They were better than Atlanta last year, and they wet the bed at home. So
that's true.
Let me. You're right. The Rams are filthy, but let me see you do something in January and February.
But typically, young teams, much like young people who wet the bed, they grow out of that, and when they do, they're tough.
And some people are Andy Dalton, and so you're right. I understand. That experience tends to, it's like the sharpening iron, whatever. But it's like I've seen enough of those where guys never grow out of that, where guys never get over. Like there's for every Drew Brees who had to get there and lose before he could win, there's an RG3 who was Rookie of the Year and then never ever got better. Maybe we're seeing that with Dak Prescott right now too. Maybe
we're not allowed. We're not allowed to.
But
we're not allowed to say anything about Prescott here. We get very good ratings in the Golden Triangle, and they're very sensitive to Dak criticisms.
Think about like the Dak Prescott conversation from my angle. Like that's a kid from Houghton, Louisiana, who dreamed of playing at LSU, and they didn't offer because they signed Stephen Rivers instead. Now, Stephen Rivers is a great guy, and I always enjoy talking to him, but if his last name wasn't Rivers, I doubt very seriously that they ever signed him, and instead they signed Prescott, and who knows what course LSU football might have taken if they'd had Prescott instead of Stephen Rivers. So, yeah, man, there's a lot of people here who sour on that conversation too.
It's funny because you can't – fans, the diehard, just cannot – there's no context fans, and that's the minority, but they're there. They can't understand the context of someone can be a great college quarterback and simply not have the arm to play in the NFL because it's a completely different game.
That's true. That's Tim Tebow. I think Tim Tebow is the greatest college quarterback I've ever seen, like in my life. I'd be open to conversation about that, and he had a ton of talent around him. But again, that's the context part of it. But we all know what Tebow was or what he really wasn't in the NFL. But every time Florida had a 3rd and 4 with Tim Tebow, you knew they were converting. It was just like why even line up a defense? They were converting. He was just simply phenomenal, and he couldn't cut it in the NFL. And Eric Crouch, man, Eric Crouch won a Heisman at Nebraska, and he became an NFL receiver. They exist.
Jason White, who beat Eli out in 2003.
Yeah, well, no, I remember Jason White probably for a different reason. I remember Marquise Hill annihilating Jason White in the Superdome in the Sugar Bowl that year when LSU won the national championship. And that Oklahoma team, people forget that Oklahoma team hung 70 on A&M. That's when A&M was still the wrecking crew, what was left of it. And they were this unstoppable machine, and LSU just completely throttled them. That was fun. Those were better times. That was 15 years ago, man. It's hard to believe it's been that long.
Okay, so Ole Miss and LSU, 8:15 on Saturday night there in Tiger Stadium.
Do we have to?
Yeah, because here's what's interesting is you and I and Chase were just having a conversation before we hit the record button, and I was laughing to myself because it is people always want to know, like, what do beat writers talk about when they talk about the games, and it's, yeah, the team I cover is not very good. They have this fault, this fault, this fault, this fault, this fault, and you were doing the same thing. So I look at this, and I'm trying to go, the line's 13-ish, and I'm thinking maybe Ole Miss barely covers. And there's a lot of people that are doing the, hey, man, this is a dangerous game for LSU. You said that as well. Tell me why.
Well, I'm the guy. Look, I watch a ton of football. I'm sure y'all do too. But I know it's tough when you're in a press box on a Saturday covering the team you cover. You know, that in that window, you probably don't get to watch anything else in a bulk of the rest of the games because your day is consumed by covering the team you cover. I don't have to do that, so I can watch games all day. And I watched this past weekend in college football. And the things you think you know sometimes, you get proven wrong, man. Like, I didn't think Kentucky was going to just hammer Mississippi State. You know, Old Dominion beat Virginia Tech. You had 5 ranked teams this past week lose to unranked teams. It just, upsets happen, and I'm not so naive as to think that a team that's going to bring a quarterback like Jordan Ta'amu and receivers like Brown and Lodge and Metcalf in the Baton Rouge are incapable of winning a game if you're not on top of your game that day. There's too much talent in the league to just be dismissive of any team on your schedule. So I get the line, and the line's probably right. At the same time, man, I also remember last year when Shea got hurt against LSU and Jordan went in, that's when that game changed, and they started moving the ball on that defense. And if LSU, this LSU defense right now has a flaw, they're struggling to get pressure, and Ed Orgeron has been very candid about this. They lost Caleb Chasson before, in the Miami game,
Sound like a cell phone.
It's him, not us.
and Arden Key and those guys. But he tore his ACL, and LSU doesn't have like a superstar edge rusher. And they also don't have a true great option opposite Greedy Williams at corner. So a lot of quarterbacks have time to throw when they're picking on whoever's opposite Greedy. And it's not hard to look at that and say, okay, well, if you can't pressure Ta'amu and he's throwing to these freak show receivers, Ole Miss could probably score some points. So, I mean, I get it. Like, I know it's a really, really long-winded answer, but, I mean, I get that argument where people go, hey, man, make sure you bring your best to Tiger Stadium on Saturday if you're LSU, because that's a team that could nip you because they can score.
What are they doing to kind of protect that? You mentioned opposite Greedy Williams and everything. I mean, are they going to bring pressure? Are you expecting a lot of blitzes? I mean, are they going to kind of play it straight up? I mean, how are they going about defending the three-headed monster, if you will, that Ole Miss does have at receiver?
Yeah, if there's one thing that kind of gives you solace, it's that, at least for me, I always trust Dave Aranda to do whatever he's going to do defensively. There's a reason they pay the guy $2.5 million. He's brilliant. Then you watch it. Just the different looks that LSU will show. It's like watching an NFL defense. He's so creative at finding ways to bring pressure. And if he had Chasson, it's easy, right? Because that's one guy who can beat any offensive tackle in the country. He could be the double team, and he could be a disruptive force. But you don't have him, so they've had to get creative. So sometimes they'll bring Devin White on delayed blitzes. They'll play Grant Delpit, who's a safety close to the line, and run safety blitzes. They've run corner blitzes. They've run different stunts and twists to get pressure with their tackles. He's just had to be more creative in how they've generated pressure, but he's still managed to do it. But at the same time, this is the biggest challenge so far, obviously, with a guy like Greg Little and with, like you mentioned, those receivers. So there's just unknowns, and like I said, you think you know things until it plays out. Like I really thought Florida was going to beat Kentucky in the Swamp. I was certain of it, like everybody was, I think. And then you go watch, and you're like, huh. Well, I learned something today. So, I really think that LSU could probably score at will against Ole Miss. But let me see it on Saturday because I've been surprised before.
Yeah, it's that side that is more fascinating to me because Ole Miss has been very, very bad defensively. I mean, historically bad, frankly, until the second half against Kent State.
It's just focus
on Saturday.
It's just focus.
Yeah, Matt, you probably aren't seeing a lot of this. The Ole Miss coaches are in that spell here where you criticize the players and you have no ability in the locker room later. So we're just getting buzzword after buzzword and platitude after platitude after platitudes.
Once they get focused, this thing's going to be different.
You mean it's not a 200-pound freshman linebacker starting in the SEC? That's
no. It's eyes. Because a lot of times they're putting their eyes in the wrong places. There's some focus.
After Alabama, it was simply just need to pump them up a little more for the game.
And then here's the other thing, Matt. You got to. I don't know if you knew this. You got to execute. It's about execution.
Sure.
It's about execution.
You got to bring your lunch pail.
Once this team focuses and executes, oh boy.
So point being, they're pretty outmanned in spots on defense where they are fairly athletic, as you mentioned, like with Cavante Ruggs. They're just young. I mean, there's nothing there, from an experience standpoint. You kind of just run around without a lot of gap control. What are we making of this LSU offense, though? Because there's no Darius Geis back there. There's no Leonard Fournette, but they're pretty good in the run game. And then with Joe Burrow, he hasn't thrown a pick. All credit for that. But when I look at any other stat, frankly, it's pretty bad.
It's a lot like the LSU offenses you've become accustomed to seeing for the last decade.
Yeah.
And you're right. The thing that's – so, look, LSU's had a great start to the season by any measure. They're 4-0. They've got 2 wins away from home against top 10 teams. But they've done it by playing great defense and outstanding special teams. And we can talk about it in a bit if y'all want, but I get nobody teams. But LSU is literally winning games because they play great defense and they are dominating field position and putting their offense in advantageous situations to score. I mean, look at the Auburn game. The second or third play of the game, whatever it was, Stidham throws the ball right at Grant Delpit at the 30-yard line. So LSU's offense gets the short field, scores a touchdown. That's literally the difference in the game if all else is equal.
Took a break in our talk with Matt. And tell you the podcast also brought to you by Community Mortgage, Oxford, Memphis, Soto County, and Chattanooga. All underwriting and processing is done in Memphis. You're getting local underwriting. It understands your market. A condo financing leader in Oxford and the float down option. So you lock in the current rate. But if rates go down before you close, you get that lower rate. 662-234-2704 or JLOWE, JLOWE at communitymtg.com.
Time is beginning to wind down for Oxford Park Commission youth basketball registration. Sign your son or daughter up today for one of the leagues. The age ranges 5 to 15. The cost is just $50 per kid. There is a multiplayer discount for families with more than one boy or girl in that age range. Last year they had more than 600 kids take part in the leagues, and numbers are expected to be similar this year. So don't miss your opportunity. Sign up now for OPC Youth Basketball, OxfordParkCommission.com. Podcast also brought to you by Grenada Nissan. Grenada Nissan, located just off Interstate 55 in Grenada. They have a complete selection of new and previously owned Nissan vehicles, great lease deals. Go in, test drive one today. Tell Gene and Sandy that you heard about Grenada Nissan on the podcast, and you'll save Rebel savings on the already great deals at Grenada Nissan. It's GrenadaNissanUSA.com. And we're brought to you by Harry Alexander. Harry is an Oxford-based RE/MAX Legacy Realty agent. He's been in Oxford more than 4 decades. No one knows the residential and condo market in Oxford better than Harry. Go to his site. He'll prove it to you. HarryAlexander.com. Click on the Properties and Neighborhoods tab. Filter through by what you are looking for, and then send him an email. It's ha@harryalexander.com. Now back to Matt Moscona on the Billy's Pecans hotline.
So, defense and special teams are how they've won. Because the numbers are what they are. LSU's 106th or something like that in the country in pass offense. I don't have it in front of me right now, but it's not good. They don't have a Fournette or a Geis. The guys that are running the ball with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Nick Brissett are serviceable backs, but neither is a true game breaker. you're never going to – like, remember the game in Baton Rouge 2 years ago where Fournette had like 180 in the first half against Ole Miss? Like, neither one of these guys are capable of that. You just don't have someone that's going to run over two guys and bust out and then sprint 80 yards past an entire defense. That just doesn't exist on this roster right now. So it's similar to the defense where they're kind of having to get creative to manufacture offense. And, Burrow's sort of taking the tact where, like, I'm just not going to turn it over. And, we'll rely on our defense and special teams and take our shots when we have them. And I know that's all cliched, but guys, I wish I could tell you, hey, if you're Ole Miss, you've got to defend this to stop LSU. That's just it's just not there. I mean, they got some good athletes. They got some big tall receivers that they're trying to push the ball to. But I don't know if y'all want to talk about it, but the biggest issue they have right now offensively is on the offensive line, which is kind of causing a domino effect of issues within the entire offense right now.
You mentioned LSU. I don't have the national stats. I have the league stats. They're 11th in the league in scoring offense. They are 12th.
They're last passing.
12th in the league in rushing offense, and they are 13th in the league in pass offense, and in front of a team that does not pass in Kentucky. They actually run pardon the pun, they run the Wildcat.
Hey!
Because they have Benny Snell, and if you have Benny Snell, you just give him the damn ball. But right. Yeah, I mean, LSU offensively, the numbers are they're not good.
So here's what's going on with LSU. What they were, 3 starting offensive linemen, and then one of the returning starters was suspended before the season started and hasn't played yet. So you have a completely new offense and a new offensive coordinator who's installing his new offense. So like we're all learning what this offense is going to be as the season goes along, but I will give them a ton of credit because Steve Ensminger is at least doing different things that Les Miles and Cam Cameron weren't doing. Like they've run Wildcat. They're running some RPOs. They're throwing the ball a good bit on first down, which is, unheard of in these parts. You're seeing creativity within the pass game. You're seeing spread concepts. You're seeing they ran tempo last week. So there's much more that you have to defend with LSU now instead of, hey, put 8 or 9 in the box, stop Fournette, stop guys, and dare generic quarterback that's played for LSU over the last decade to beat you throwing the football because you don't think he can. They're doing a lot more. Executing it really well has been part of the issue. And LSU goes into these lulls offensively where if you look at their quarter-by-quarter scoring, like they've been amazing in the first half and dreadful in the third quarter. And then if they need late scores, they get them, like this past week against Louisiana Tech. I mean, LSU was up 24-0 in that game. I know nobody watched it because there's no reason you should have. LSU got up 24-0 in the first half, and then the offense just evaporated. And it ended up a 24-21 ball game with like 8 minutes to go. And there were a lot of nervous people around here because they remember what happened with Troy last year. And then LSU kind of had to, and so they kicked it into gear again. They ended up winning by 17, but that's a bit deceiving because of how it played out. So I guess the point is, guys, like if LSU, I think they'll start fast, but if they hit one of those lulls and Ole Miss starts scoring, and you get into a similar situation as what happened this past week, I think you're much more nervous because you know offensively who's on the other side and that Ole Miss can keep scoring.
How much, if at all, has Ed matured as a head coach from what you can gather just in the last year?
I think I don't know about matured. I just, and I don't mean to say that he hasn't, but there's things he's doing differently now that you can tell were learn-on-the-job mistakes that he made. And part of the issue I had with the hire initially was LSU isn't a learn-on-the-job type place. I'll give you a couple examples. So the most obvious one is Matt Canada, right? So he hires Matt Canada because he feels like that's what he had to do was go hire the big-name guy. and that blows up in his face. You lose basically a year of developing Miles Brennan at quarterback. You lose a year of installing an offense and becoming proficient. It certainly hurt you in recruiting with a lot of the tumult that happened with all of that. And a lot of people didn't know what the offense was going to be with Steve Ensminger. That's part of it, but at the same time now he's got his guys. Another was last year, Ed decided that he wanted to keep Dennis Johnson on staff and Pete Jenkins, who is the legendary defensive line coach, but Pete's in his upper 80s. But what that cost LSU was a special teams coordinator, and they didn't have room on staff to have both. So he kept Pete and decided not to hire a special teams coordinator, just divvied up all the responsibilities among the staff, and they were dreadful on special teams last year, like literally the worst year they had in special teams in 15 seasons. So he corrected that mistake, brought on Greg McMahon as a special teams coordinator this year, and it's part of the reason they're winning games is because they're so good at special teams. So I guess my point is, like, the mistakes he made in year one, he's worked to correct in year two, and it's working. So I think his ability to recognize deficiencies and mistakes and correct them is encouraging. The discouraging part is that you made the mistakes to begin with, and you wonder how many more there might be.
Let me backtrack real quick. I think your cell phone cut out for just a second, so if you've already answered some of this, I apologize. But when you mentioned that offensive line and some of the injuries and things they have going on, what's sort of the fall off there? I mean, how concerned is LSU about those 2 or 3 guys being out? Because Ole Miss, they haven't been very good up front, but they were at least a little more active last week. I think they're going to play some of those guys more this weekend, and they did seem to have somewhat of an uptick in performance there late in that game Saturday.
Yeah, so to kind of put into context the situation with the offensive line, so against Auburn, LSU gave up a sack, 5 quarterback hurries, and 7 tackles for loss. And the feeling around here was like, hell yeah, man, they were awesome on Saturday. So it kind of goes to put into context, like, the issues and the expectation. Now, the linchpin is Sadiq Charles, who's their left tackle, and I know a lot of people don't know that name, but he played a bunch last year as a true freshman, and he's the starting left tackle now, and he's a dude. Like, he's not just a guy playing left tackle.
Yeah, he's from Jackson, so most of our guys know him. Okay,
good. Yeah. He is a like legit future all SEC left tackle, top 2-round NFL draft pick. I mean, he's been amazing, and it's the domino effect when he's not in there is so obvious when because of how they have to shuffle things. When he's there, they basically say, "Hey, Sadiq, you're not getting any help. Just block everybody over there," and he does. But the rest of the injuries I mentioned, at the beginning of the season against Tech, and Ed Ogeron has already announced he's out for the Ole Miss game and possibly longer with a knee injury, and he's going to be replaced by a true freshman. So, they've had a rough go of it, and they've tried to mix and match 4 games. They've used 4 different offensive line combinations, and they'll have a 5th different combination this week, obviously with Brumfield out. With a lot of new guys, it's just tough to develop any consistency. So, if you can't get your protection set, it has the effect on the passing game and the rushing game and everything. If they want to run a 4-receiver route, but they don't trust the offensive line to protect Joe Burrow, it's hard to do that. So they're having to go max protect a lot, and maybe run 2-receiver routes instead, and it's just limiting what the offense can be. So, that's really your telltale. I mean, I know the cliche is the game's won and lost in the trenches, but with this LSU offense right now, that is sort of the genesis of their issues when they have them. It's, can they protect Joe Burrow and execute the things that they're trying to execute?
This starts a pretty brutal stretch for LSU. They've got Ole Miss this week at home. They go to Florida, Georgia, Mississippi State, Alabama, and then what should be a win, obviously, against Arkansas. What's realistic here? I mean, you've seen them for 4 weeks now. What's this thing look like as the middle of the season gets into this meat grinder?
Realistic? I mean, realistically, I think they can win 10 games. I mean, I don't think they will. I mean, I think 8-4 is probably more likely than 10-2, which means they'll probably end up going 9-3, which is better than I predicted, guys. I mean, I picked this team 7-5. I picked them losing to Auburn, Georgia, Bama. I thought those were three that you could just mark L's and ink on the schedule. And then the other four sort of toss-ups, Miami, Florida, Mississippi State, Texas A&M. I figured they'd split those and end up 7-5, just against a brutal schedule. And they've already won one of the games I thought they couldn't win. So, I mean, is it plausible that they beat Ole Miss, win at Florida, beat Mississippi State, Texas A&M? Yeah, I mean, that's all plausible. If they do that and just lose to Georgia and Bama, they're 10-2. Now, going back to how we started the conversation, though, guys, I mean, just look around the league, and I mean, Florida looks better than they did against Kentucky. That Kentucky loss doesn't all of a sudden look as bad as it did whenever it happened. And LSU's got to go to Gainesville for the second consecutive year. I still think Mississippi State's a really good team. That beat LSU by 30 last year. Georgia and Bama are juggernauts, and I think A&M's much improved, and that's the last game of the season, and it's in Kyle Field. I mean, I could very easily see 3-4 losses on this slate for LSU, however it may pan out. I think the interesting thing will be what this team does when they face adversity. Because a year ago when they lost that Mississippi State game, things got bad, got toxic, and that's when they lost to Troy. And then they had to sort of make a decision: were they going to let the season just go to hell, or were they going to kind of rally? And the next week they went and played a really tough game and won at Florida 17-16, and it kind of changed the course of the season. So I'm curious to see what this team does when it faces adversity. Like, let's say things don't go well and they lose to Ole Miss this weekend. Do they then go lose to Florida? And if they got a 2-game losing streak coming home against Georgia, that's not a great recipe for success. And if they lose that on a 3-game losing streak and then they got Mississippi State, well, you see what I'm saying? Like, it's just the way you put it, Chase, the meat grinder of the SEC is very legitimate, and how you navigate that determines really the success and failure of your season based on how you handle your successes and failures. So they didn't do a great job with that last year. So I'll be very curious to see how they handle adversity, which is most certainly going to come, because this is not a team that's going to go undefeated. But yeah, I mean, if you made me pick it today, I'd probably say they can find a way to go 9-3, which would be a remarkable season considering what the expectations were and what the schedule is ahead of them.
Matt, thanks for the time very much. Really appreciate it. Have a safe drive to New Orleans. We'll talk to you soon.
Always my pleasure, guys. Thanks.
Thanks to Matt for always joining us on the Billy's Pecans hotline. The podcast also brought to you by Tyson Drugs. TysonDrugs.com is the address, or the email, or website address, whatever. They've got that. Great app, and located in downtown Holly Springs, 662-252-2321. They deliver wherever you are, and they have a local establishment now in Oxford as well with G&M Pharmacy on South Lamar. Go check them out. Let them help with all your pharmacy needs. They deliver local in the Oxford area.
Guests join us all the time on the Billy's Pecans hotline. Billy's Pecans, the product's fantastic. It's Billy'sPecans.com. All the pecans we tell you about, the toasted pecans, the cinnamon spice pecans, all the different varieties of chocolate pecans, cheese krispies, coffee cakes, pecan brittle, pecan toffee, and more. It's a great corporate gift. They package incredibly professionally. We had a lot of people take advantage of that as you start to think about the holidays, which, believe it or not, will be here before you know it, because that's how football season works. So Billy'sPecans.com, BILLIES Pecans.com. Podcast also brought to you in part by John Edwards of Regency Travel Incorporated in Memphis. If you've been thinking about that golf trip with the guys, or maybe that anniversary trip she'll never forget, well, whether you've dreamed of playing St. Andrews or sitting at a cafe in Paris, talk to John Edwards before you try to do it yourself. Why use John? Well, he's a part of Virtuoso. It's a worldwide network of travel partners that allows John to supply his clients with added values and unique benefits that are simply not available to other travelers. John traveled the globe for 37 years before getting into the travel business, so he knows the extra attention needed to make a special trip one that creates a lifetime of unique memories. So if you're thinking about going with the boys to Pebble Beach or taking her to Napa for the vacation of her dreams, call John, give him some parameters and a budget, and let him give you some options. And know this, you don't have to live in or near Memphis to take advantage of his services. Call John 901-494-3387 or send him an email at jedwards@regencytravel.net. First-time clients can save $50 off their first booked trip just by telling John you heard about Regency Travel on the podcast.
Remember, you don't need a football game to enjoy Oxford for a weekend, so come hang out and enjoy all the different options given to you at visitoxfordms.com. Visit oxfordms.com/events for the calendars that includes the double-decker bus tours every Friday at 2 o'clock. Before Ole Miss football games, the Wizard of Oz coming to the Ford Center, Thacker Mountain radio broadcast in front of an audience at 6 p.m. on Thursdays in front of Off Square Books, and much, much, much more. As you know, Oxford more than just Ole Miss athletic events and football games. So, again, you can check out their website or the calendar events at visit oxfordms.com/events. Let's see. Speaking of, you mentioned John Edwards a second ago. Ryder Cup have any attention to you at all this weekend?
Is it this weekend?
It's this week.
Oh.
Ryder, they're in Paris right now. It's an interesting thing because I don't feel like the Ryder Cup grabs the casual fan while putting the golf fan in overdrive. You know what I mean? It's weird, that disconnect there where the bottom half doesn't really come up to the top, but then the top goes nuts for 3 or 4 days.
See, I'm anticipating being very frustrated this weekend over the Cubs blowing the National League Central. That's my anticipation. Oh, my God. Okay. And so, no, I mean, if you tell me that on Sunday the Cubs are not playing a meaningful game,
and the golf's tight,
I'll watch.
It's got to be tight.
Yes. Am I watching the first day? I mean, I'm following it, but I'm not glued to it.
And on Sunday, if the U.S. is up 16-6, you don't care.
Or vice versa. Yeah, I'm not interested. But if it's really close and I get to watch.
Tigers coming down the stretch, and let's.
Sure.
Because match play is a better golf TV than stroke play.
Yeah, I don't even understand what stroke play is. And I know what it is, but like when I'm watching it, I'm like, I don't get it.
Well, stroke play is just scores.
Oh.
Match play is when you play head up and
they do that alternating shot thingy or something that I'm like, what the hell? Just
foursomes. You hit some of the shots, not all the shots.
I hate that.
Why?
I don't know. Just play golf.
See, I kind of like that one because mentally, that one's hard because you're alternating shots every time, and you've got to hit the shot, and then you also don't want to like let your partner down. So you got one guy playing really well and one guy playing like crap, and it almost kind of creates contention.
Yeah, it's like I don't like doubles tennis. Like I'll watch Wimbledon, but when they in the finals is supposed to they had allotted the time for 5 sets and it's a 3-set match, and they have all this extra time and they're like, oh, let's show you mixed doubles, the finals, and you're like, no, I'm good. I don't like that.
Okay, whatever you say. I will give you a golf stat I think you'll appreciate. Let me find it here, just to make sure. There's thousands of Tiger Woods stats that everybody goes, okay, sure, and yeah, it's great because he obviously has accumulated quite the number of stats over time, But I think this one, let's see, let me find it. Hold on. Won't be long. Tiger Woods. Good pod, I know, but I think everybody who hasn't seen this will find it somewhat interesting, so bear with me. Every year since, I think it's 2002, I think that's right, that he has qualified for stats as in played enough rounds in a season, if that makes sense. You got to play 50 rounds in a season or whatever to qualify for these. He has been number 1 in the world in strokes gained approach, meaning every single season in the last 16 years that he's qualified with a number of rounds, he's been the best iron player on tour. Number 1. Every single season.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
I'm not surprised.
It's just being, you can be a great iron player and be 4, 6, 3, be the most consistent every year, but to be number 1 every year.
It's like Mike Trout.
It's just.
He's the best. When you're the best, you're the best. It's like Bryce Harper, his numbers at the end of the season. People are going to look up and go, oh, wow, I had a really good year.
Yeah, 1-1-1, not ranked, not ranked. 1-1-1-1, not ranked, not ranked, not ranked, not ranked, 1.
Yeah.
Even this year, number 1 on tour in iron play. This year.
Tells you that all the crazy stuff notwithstanding, if he never has the injuries, he shatters the records.
Just
shatters them.
Yeah. Doesn't tear an ACL, doesn't.
We love greatness. Why do people watch LeBron? He's the best. Why do people watch Jordan? He was the best.
It's not complicated.
Well, he's the best. It's kind of why, if you're right about the Patriots and Brady and stuff this year, it's going to be a little sad. We don't like watching the greats go away. We did not like Michael Jordan with the Wizards.
Mm-hmm.
People were, oh, it's distasteful.
Joe Montana with the Chiefs.
Kobe at the end.
Yeah.
I didn't like that. Kobe in his prime, in.
Killer.
Devastating. Awesome.
Yeah.
You loved him or you loved to hate him.
Attitude to back it up.
Yeah, he was the best. He was the best. We love greatness. Everyone loves greatness. You either love it or you love to hate it, but you feel passion about it.
Mm-hmm.
Tiger's truly that dude. He's almost like a wrestler in that he started off as a villain, and now he's a fan favorite. For a long time, people cheered against Tiger. Thought he was cocky, arrogant. Then he got humbled, and like you said yesterday, humble Tiger's fun.
Looks like there's at least a chance that Tiger plays with Phil this week, which I hate from a pairing standpoint, just from that. But anyway.
Yeah, see, Phil doesn't move the dial for me the way that he moves it for a lot of people.
Because of Tiger's iron play, he needs to play in the foursomes with the straightest driver there is of the golf ball. Put him in the fairway and let him hit it to the green.
And then let him hit the iron.
Yeah. So that would be the goal there. Phil, not the straightest driver known to man by any stretch of the imagination. So,
you excited at all about the baseball playoffs starting next week as a Braves?
I will follow. I will watch. I'm kind of like you in this way somewhat. I'm calling me a fan right now is not fair. I've been so disconnected from it for a while that's not accurate to the fans. But I'm following. I mean, hope they win. It's fun, but I'm not going to be emotionally invested. But I'll care. I'll watch. I'm in. Playoff baseball's great. So I mean, I'd watch that if it was just two nondescript names on the jerseys.
Atlanta and the Dodgers.
Dodgers hadn't clinched that thing yet.
No, they're only up 1.5. Their magic number is 5. They're in the same spot the Cubs are in. The Cubs' magic number is 5 over the Brewers. Cubs have a 1.5 game lead over the Brewers, a 4.5 game lead over the Cardinals.
I mean, the Braves could be playing the Rockies.
Yeah. What I love about this time of year is that, like tonight, I have no choice but to cheer for the Cardinals. Actively. I need the Cardinals to win tonight. And we'll cheer for them. Like a freaking fan.
Okay. All in.
I knew.
Birds on the bat, baby.
When I looked at the schedule, I knew the Pirates were going to be trouble. I knew it. Their pitching staff gives the Cubs fits. The Cubs have 4 games at home with them. And Jamison Taillon last night was really good. And they play Chris Archer tonight, who's been really bad, and the Cubs need him to be bad again. Cubs need to beat Archer today, and who's pitching in that St. Louis game? It's
So you should have put the number of deodorant strokes on the Cardinals pitcher today.
It might come to that. It's Gio Gonzalez tonight for Milwaukee, who's been really good, that bastard, versus Gomber, the rookie for the Cardinals, who's 6-1 with a 3.63 ERA. Some of their young pitching at times looks like they're hitting the wall, which is a little scary. Dodgers and D-backs tonight. Dodgers hanging on to their lead. They'll send Walker Buehler to the mound, who's been phenomenal. He's been so good.
Buehler's been good.
So good. And then the
that doesn't shock me. I was always not 100% sold on Carson Fulmer, but I really like Walker Buehler the whole time.
He's had some games down the stretch where you're like, whoa. And the Rockies play the Phillies tonight.
Phillies have just given up.
Yeah, it's Velasquez versus Bettis.
Phillies only 1 game above 500 right now.
See what the Brewers did last night?
No.
They started Dan Jennings, the reliever.
Mm-hmm.
He pitched to one hitter, and then they brought in He got Matt Carpenter out, and then they went to the bullpen. Their starter faced one hitter, and then they went to the bullpen.
Why? Because, pitching backwards is one thing, but why one hitter?
They had a bullpen game, and they just wanted him to get a lefty to face a lefty. I'm pulling up the box for Milwaukee. Milwaukee's box last night. Jennings pitched 1/3 of an inning. Freddie Peralta came in and threw 3 2/3. Williams pitched 2/3 of an inning. Josh Hader pitched an inning. Actually gave up 3 hits, 3 runs, all earned, walked 2, struck out 2, 2 home runs. Guerra threw 1/3 of an inning. Cedeno 1/3 of an inning. Burns,
they win?
Yeah, they won. Burns 2/3 of an inning. Soria an inning, and Corey Knebel an inning.
Okay. Let's talk about it. We haven't really discussed it. Matt Luke press conference yesterday. Wesley McGriff, Phil Longo.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
You can get all that on the site, rebelgrove.com.
Yeah, there's quick hits. There's all the video and a Luke transcript. It's all there.
Everything you'd want to know. Two things.
It's part of the Rivals Network. You should subscribe.
You got a bunch of different people asking a bunch of different questions about different things. 2 things stuck out to me. One, alluded this a little bit with Matt, obviously that Charles Wiley and Kadir Shepard and Markel Winters had really good games against Kent State on Saturday. However, Matt has been very dedicated to not saying, hey, yeah, those are we're you're getting a lot more snaps. That's a thing. He appears that's going to be very dependent on style of offense. LSU, not the spread style like Kent State, not the team where it looks like Ole Miss is going to utilize speed. I'm not necessarily expecting an uptick in snaps for those guys on Saturday against LSU.
No, I think they'd prefer to play Coatney
Jones and Coatney.
Jones.
Yeah.
Look, we just heard Matt. You've watched LSU. You know what LSU is going to try to do. I'm not saying they're going to do it. I'm not saying they'll be successful. I'm not saying they'll fail. I don't know. But they're going to try to run the football. They would love nothing more than to run the football and establish the run against Ole Miss. What's interesting about LSU through 4 games, if I can find it, it's a great pod. LSU rushing offense, they're only 12th in the SEC. Ole Miss is 11th. Only Arkansas and Vanderbilt are worse running the football than LSU. LSU rushing for 169.8 a game, passing for 182.8 a game. So their total offense, not surprisingly, is the worst in the SEC at 352.5 yards per game. Now, if you offered Wesley McGriff LSU's average right now and said you can hold them to 352, he'd say done. Done.
Yeah.
No questions asked. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Can Ole Miss hold LSU under 400 yards? Because if they can, I think they've got a chance to win the game.
If they do, it looks like 225 on the ground and 150 through the air.
225 on the ground's a bunch.
You said keep them under 400. I think that's the ratio that would be required to do that.
Yeah.
Now, Burrow throws for 300, you're getting killed.
Burrow throws for 300, and they covered that line running away.
Yeah.
I mean,
that or Ole Miss popped them early and they got out of their game plan, one or the other. But
yeah, but
I mean,
if you tell me going in Burrow throws for 300, I'm like, oh my God, it was a blowout. My column's written in the second quarter. And the column on that is in that scenario, there's no fixing this. That's that column. I can tell you that now. There's no fixing this.
The other thing that I took out of yesterday that I found interesting was on the offensive side of the ball. And Longo, to his credit, and I mean this seriously, I don't mean it as a slight or sarcasm, he's going to always answer these questions with, I don't know what we're going to do because I don't know what the defense is giving me. Yeah, until I see it, I don't know. Okay, yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Matt Luke, however, twice now since the end of the Kent State game has mentioned high percentage throws, shorter throws, things to get the wide receivers active in space, shorter on the field instead of the long throw. I think that's a better recipe for Ole Miss in a lot of ways because, it's what Dwayne Treadwell's so good when he was at Ole Miss was just getting the ball, give it to him, and then let him do something with it. Kind of like the wide receiver version of Benny Snell at Kentucky. And Ole Miss has become so dependent on that long ball at times that I think letting Tamu get the ball out quick, get it to Brown and Metcalf and Lodge and those guys in space, even if it's in the short and intermediate area, could be a good thing. So I thought that was interesting that Luke has emphasized a little more high percentage throws a couple times.
Through 4 games, Ole Miss is dead last in time of possession in the SEC.
Well, then that's not a shock.
LSU's 5th.
That's 2 things. That's number one, the offense does what the offense does, and the defense is so bad they're on the field forever. It's both things.
Opponent third down conversion, Ole Miss is 12th in the league. Opponent first downs, Ole Miss is 14th in the league, giving up 27.5 first downs a game. Ole Miss, on the other hand, is 9th in the league in first downs. They get 20.8. A&M's the leader.
Okay.
We're almost, in fact, we're kind of there to the point where you can start looking at stats and going, well, you can start seeing some identity on teams.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we're
a third of the way.
It's
week 5.
This time next week, about to play the halfway point.
Yeah.
Or the end of the first half, I guess, if you will.
Getting pretty excited about ULM making that trip.
Pumped up. I hadn't seen them in a little while,
Yeah.
I think they wore the camo jerseys, or is that just baseball? No, football's actually okay. Their uniforms are all right in football.
Probably just baseball. I don't think they'll break out camo.
They should.
Be interesting to see whether they wear helmets or whether they wear the cap and gown.
The graduation.
Yeah, the graduation uniforms.
If it was rugby, they could do that.
I thought someone on the message board pointed this out, and it was true. Real big advantage for Ole Miss that the game's at 3 as opposed to 11.
Get a few study halls in prior to kickoff?
Well, because normally if the game were at 11, they would get up early and just have a quick study, and then they have to get ready for the game because you have to.
But now it can go comprehensive on you.
And now they could, yeah. I mean, they probably will. A lot of these guys will practice the LSAT Saturday morning. The MCAT. There will be a lot of, I mean, so drained emotionally and mentally when they show up at the game.
That game is next Saturday. If you've got a locker or a suite and you would like to have that thing stocked for you, Locker Stockers can help you out. You place the order. They handle purchase and delivery to Locker Suite prior to game day. Mention the podcast. Get some discounts. 662-586-1487 or info@lockerstockers.com.
Podcast also brought to you by Robert Gambrell and Associates. He knows that many of the people listening to this podcast, will never need a bankruptcy attorney or Social Security disability attorney, but many of you may be interested in reviewing your financial situation to consider asset protection. It's a part of what a good bankruptcy attorney does. Many of you have friends or relatives who get into difficult financial situations. Gambrell and Associates helps many people work through their times of hardship, whether that results in filing a bankruptcy petition or working to avoid a bankruptcy filing. Whether whatever your needs are, you, your relatives, or friends can get a free consultation for 1 hour or more to help make your decision on what is best for you. avvo.com or superlawyers.com if you want to search for Robert on the internet, or give him a call, 662-281-8800.
Yeah. So let's see. As we're wrapping up, we'll have practice content today at rebelgrove.com. I'll tell you, snap counts and grades up on the site for Pro Football Focus this morning. Loaded them prior to the podcast. You can go now and see those. We hadn't talked about this, but just looking at snap counts, got to give Javon Patterson a lot of credit. He's played a ton of snaps this season for Ole Miss, pretty much every snap. I think he and Jordan Tamu have the same number of snaps this season from an offensive standpoint.
He's had a really nice career.
Yeah. Huge get back in the day.
He was a 4-star offensive lineman,
and he's played
like a 4-star offensive lineman.
Giving you exactly what you hope to get out of it from the start.
Great kid, steady, worked hard, gotten better. Really good player.
Yeah,
you could make a living off signing a whole bunch of Javon Pattersons.
Wouldn't be the worst thing you could do, would it?
As a rule, signing 4 stars that have multiple SEC offers is a good way to build a program. Not trying to be a smartass either. I'm not. You don't build your program by signing sleepers. All right, one of my questions for the mailbag, and I couldn't think of the answer, whether you can think of it.
All right.
In terms of misses in the Freeze era.
Okay.
It's not knocking on Freeze. Jannard Avery, was it the biggest miss?
See, here's the deal with Avery. I understand completely. He's in your backyard, and there are special circumstances for those people sometimes, like Tylen Knight, right?
And the guy that was responsible for recruiting him, Matt Luke, wanted him badly.
Yeah, until I get all that.
Yeah.
I do provide a little bit of a disclaimer was no one else offered him either.
Right.
He had no SEC offers.
His offers were Memphis, Southern Miss.
Maybe you should have noticed it, and yes, because he's in your backyard and wants to come to your school, you have more responsibility there.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like it was, okay, Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee, and LSU, and here you go.
So who would be the biggest miss for him? Because to me, a miss, it depends on your definition of miss. If your definition of miss is a guy that everybody else recruited and you didn't get, well, it could be you missed him for a lot of reasons. If a miss is a misevaluation, it has to be Avery.
Yeah. Your best evaluation of the entire time was Evan Ingram, and your worst was Jannard Avery.
That's fair. Yeah.
Probably. Just thinking out loud for a minute without really looking at it. Yeah, because you look the other way and you go, well, and now look, some of their careers didn't pan out, but, well, had you gotten Niles Morgan, had you gotten Clifton Garrett, some of those kind of guys. But, yeah, I mean, everybody recruited those dudes.
It's like the real answer, the biggest miss was the running back from Jackson, whose name's escaping. Cam Akers. And people will go, well, Cam Akers hasn't been that good at Florida State, and you're right. But from a perception standpoint, that was the biggest miss. Yeah. That miss signaled that something was wrong inside the
your
program.
Offensive ability,
it told you that the program was in trouble.
Yeah, this stat real quick. Through 4 weeks, Tamu and Javon Patterson have both played 262 snaps. Sean Rawlings at 244, Greg Little at 227, DK at 223, and then on down from there. I tell you the sneaky one that's got a decent amount of reps, by the way, Royce Newman's played 86 snaps so far this year. They've gotten Royce in a pretty good bit.
He'll be an important player next year.
I mean, he's averaging 20 snaps a game or so right now. He's played a good bit more than Jordan Sims to this point, just looking at snap counts. So, offensively, that is the leader, if you're curious, just quickly here. Defensively for the season, snap count totals, Zedrick Woods, C.J. Moore, a huge lead in that category, just speaks to kind of what they have for the safety situation. And then Sanogo and Benito Jones, the next two there. I mean, that's with Benito not only playing 13 snaps against Kent State on Saturday. So, anyway. All right, plenty more RebelGrove.com. Be back tomorrow. We'll have a guest. Got a couple different possibilities for that, but somebody will be talking a little more about Ole Miss and LSU as we head toward Saturday night. Talk to you then.